We're back with Representative Thom Tillis. We are going to speak, before I get into the teachers' salaries and his feeling in education, wanted to touch on something we started to discuss in pork barrel spending. Across the country we hear about pork barrel spending. I'm sure there's some excesses in the budget that we have in this state. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know that's one of the topics that you really gets under your skin.
Yeah, and you know, I tell you, I really don't know how long I am for politics, because I just can't get into the sensational side of it. So I'm probably going to be limited in my career. The pork barrel spending, slush funds, all these sorts of things, you really have to get down below it and say, where is the money being spent and what process did they arrive at to get there? What you find out, there are a lot of legitimate projects, but we just don't feel like they're going through a fair and transparent process to get there. One classic example where, you know, one person would call it pork barrel spending, Exit 28 here, trying to work with the federal government to get accelerate funding to improve Exit 28 in Cornelius. That would probably be viewed as a pork barrel project, because we go to a legislator and they may, through their committee process, get it done.
Unless you live in Cornelius and you realize how bad the traffic is.
That's exactly right. But I think on the whole, what we have to do is eliminate what I think most people believe is a disproportionate influence that a handful of legislators have, leaders have, over spending priorities. So to be fair, 70 or 80% of the money is probably allocated in a fair and equitable way. But that remaining 20% has some egregious examples of power having more influence over where the money gets spent than need. You see that with the reprioritization of the Fayetteville Loop. The Fayetteville Loop has moved ahead of critical projects like 485. That's something I've had on my website.
Well, I was going to say, can't they take some of those funds and put it towards?
That's exactly what I've continued to call for, call to action. I always smile, because just about every day I'll get a trickle of emails to the governor and to the legislative leaders saying reprioritize that loop. I'm not saying that Fayetteville doesn't have a problem that needs to be addressed, but by almost every measure, the problem that we have with I-77 with safety and congestion, and the problem that we have with 485 in terms of economic impact, by most people's standards. I went to a high-ranking DOT official. I said, you know me, I'm not sensational. I'm not going to assume that, that the newspaper print is right. You tell me, in your professional opinion, if the reprioritization of the Fayetteville Loop is the right thing, and I'll never go on the news saying otherwise. And he said, can't tell you that. It's wrong. By most of our measures and my colleagues' measures, this was not the best and highest use of the money. That gave me a green light to say, look, I'm talking to high-ranking DOT officials. I'm not talking to politicians who want to take a jab at one area of the state or the other. Congestion and safety are not major factors in prioritizing roads. Now, I got to say that again. Congestion and safety are not major factors in prioritizing road funding. Now, when you're in an economic downturn like this, everyone views Charlotte as the economic engine of North Carolina. What's been very interesting to me...
Over Raleigh?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Really? Even the folks in Raleigh. And this was the most telling thing over the last... my first term in North Carolina, or in the General Assembly, you know, we were the great state of Mecklenburg. We were kind of the prima donna, always wanting, you know, always wanting more, always feel like we're donating so much. So we were always kind of treated like the spoiled child. With the downturn and with the situation with Wachovia, what's very interesting now is those same people are coming up and saying, how's Charlotte and Mecklenburg doing? They recognize that as Mecklenburg goes, so does the state. And we've got these constructs in place, though, that really prevent us from making sure that we're priming that pump, we're fueling that engine called Mecklenburg County and the Metrolina region. When to me, a tiebreaker in these times is, where does the maximum economic stimulative benefit come from the money that we spend? And where are the biggest safety problems? Where are the congestion problems that are causing problems with business growth and
so this is a real
with economic prosperity? What's that?
It's a real wake-up call.
It is a wake-up call. What we're finding is some of the constructs we have in place make it very difficult to do that. The so-called equity formula, which was fundamentally established in 1989 for road improvements, doesn't deal with the real world situation that we have here now. That equity formula needs to be reopened. We need to make sure that we're not turning our backs on rural North Carolina. We do need to make sure that roads get to the far reaches of the state. But we also need to look at this and say, I'm about to spend this dollar in transportation money. Is it being spent to save people's lives on the least safe corridors? Is it being spent to eliminate congestion, which has an enormous impact on air quality and other federal funding for roads? And is it the best use from an economic stimulative impact? When you measure it on those three levers, then you're going to find that our region would actually tend to do very well, and that ultimately creates the currency that lets us build those roads all across the state. A lot of other people don't realize Charlotte's the #1 tourist destination in the state of North Carolina. It's not the beaches, it's not Raleigh, it's here. And we want to keep all of those things in play because it benefits the state as a whole.
I did not realize that about Charlotte. I would assume that the beaches were the #1 tourist destination. That's very interesting. So really Charlotte is more important than we've been led to believe.
Yes, it is. And all of those who have been around for a while know it. And in these tough times, I'm actually heartened to see that they care, that they really do understand. We've got to set priorities. Conversations about things that we need to do.
Well, I assume they would because we're sending them the money, and
that's right.
If we have a problem, then we are a feeder county, so to speak.
That's right.
We're feeding the coffers.
And we have the largest scale and opportunity to actually take us out of this economic downturn. And I think that view is shared from Raleigh to Charlotte.
Actually, we never got into our teacher segment, and we're going to do that. We're going to take a short break. This was a short segment. We're going to take a short break, come back, and I want to deal with that topic extensively. Okay. Thanks very much. We'll be right back, folks, and talk about teacher salaries. Thank you.